to the news of this night, which could become known as Revenge Friday. Tonight, two star witnesses of the impeachment hearings are out of their jobs. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman is out at the National Security Council at the White House. Gordon Sondland, ambassador to the EU, who donated $1 million to the Trump inaugural effort, is out of his post. He has been recalled as our ambassador from Brussels. Remember, it was Sondland who supplied this testimony.
Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes. Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret.
Tonight, Sondland said in a very different statement, quote, "I was advised today that the president intends to recall me effective immediately as United States ambassador to the European Union. I am grateful to President Trump for having given me the opportunity to serve." And now we move on to Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, escorted out of his job and off the White House grounds, as was his twin brother, who was also assigned to the NSC. Vindman, as you may recall, is a decorated Wounded War veteran and Purple Heart recipient. He raised concerns about the president's call with the Ukrainian president. That's what his testimony was about. His lawyer said in a statement, quote, "There is no question in the mind of any American why this man's job is over. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman was asked to leave for telling the truth." Yesterday at the White House, Trump made reference to both men in the infamous phone call as he celebrated his acquittal.
Fortunately, for all of us here today and for our country, we had transcripts. We had transcribers, professional transcribers. Then they said, oh, well, maybe the transcription is not correct. But Lieutenant Colonel Vindman and his twin brother, right? We had some people that really amazing.
This morning, the president was asked whether he wanted Vindman out of the White House.
I'm not happy with him. You think I'm supposed to be happy with him? I'm not.
The Washington Post says Trump has had Vindman in his crosshairs for some time. Stands to reason. They report this. Trump has complained about Vindman in private, mocking the way he spoke, wore his uniform, and conducted himself during the impeachment inquiry. He has discussed with aides removing other national security officials who testified or cooperated with House Democrats, with Trump calling them disloyal. Earlier today, Senator Susan Collins, who is still defending her vote to acquit Trump, was asked about the possibility that he might retaliate against Lieutenant Colonel Vindman.
I obviously am not in favor of any kind of retribution against anyone who came forward with evidence.
And now, of course, that's done. You may recall that Vindman addressed the issue of retribution and potential consequences from his testimony when he recalled his father's decision to emigrate from the Soviet Union to the U.S.
In Russia, my act of expressing concern to the chain of command in an official and private channel would have severe personal and professional repercussions. Dad, I'm sitting here today in the U.S. Capitol talking to our elected professionals is proof that you made the right decision 40 years ago to leave the Soviet Union and come here to the United States of America in search of a better life for our family. Do not worry. I will be fine for telling the truth.
There is also news on the 2020 election front tonight, 4 days out, of course, from the New Hampshire primary. The latest NBC News Marist poll shows the race narrowing to 4 main candidates. We'll have more on that later. Meanwhile, Trump's former Navy Secretary Richard Spencer is now endorsing Mike Bloomberg's bid to keep the president from winning a second term. Spencer, you may recall, was fired after he opposed Trump's decision to pardon a Navy SEAL who had been charged with war crimes. He's the first Trump political appointee to come out in support of one of his former boss's opponents in the 2020 race. And today, Spencer explained why he is backing Mike Bloomberg.
We need leadership, proven leadership like Mike. We need honesty. We need integrity. He respects opinions. He is not the sole, I have the only answer, which is a very dangerous position to be in.
We will get to our leadoff discussion in just a moment. But for the very latest, we are joined by telephone with Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. Peter, let's take on Mr. Sondland first. He would be forgiven for saying, for my $1 million, this is what I got now. The inability to have dinner in a restaurant unrecognized and an asterisk next to my time as U.S. ambassador to the EU.
Well, that's right. Of course, Gordon Sondland was one of the key witnesses in the impeachment hearings back in November. He testified that everybody involved was taking orders from the president and everyone was in the loop. But, of course, today he was told he has to give up his post as European Union ambassador. Now, he had been interested in leaving anyway for a few weeks. But today they called him and said, you have to leave today. And he didn't want to do that on the same day that Colonel Vindman had been fired because he didn't want to look like he was somehow the same and simply being purged. And they said, fine, then they fired him. According to our people, that he was told he had to come back now as the ambassador, and he put out a statement. In his case, a gracious statement thanking the president for the opportunity to serve, but clearly not the way he wanted to leave his service.
Peter, is it over, or could this be just the beginning?
Well, I don't think it's over. Certainly the president made very clear in the last 2 days since his acquittal that he is anxious for payback. He's very angry at the people who he considers to be his tormentors. He's lashed out at the senators and Congress people, and these are only two of the witnesses who are still working in the government. There are others who are still in the government. We'll see if any of them see any consequences as a result of this. The White House press secretary herself, Stephanie Grisham, said on Fox that the people who hurt the president should pay for it. And I think we're seeing the beginning of that right now.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.